Before we go any further, if you're serious about uncovering the realities of World War II beyond the textbook version, subscribe to Hidden Histories WWII right now. This channel exists for people who want the truth. How men actually survived, suffered, adapted, and sometimes failed under conditions modern armies would consider unacceptable. What you're about to hear is not romanticized warfare. It's survival history, learned the hard way. Winter killed more soldiers in World War II than many weapons. On the Eastern Front alone, cold-related casualties reached into the hundreds of thousands. Frostbite, trench foot, hypothermia and starvation were constant threats. Yet soldiers kept fighting, moving and surviving without modern thermal clothing, insulated boots or reliable heating. They survived through improvisation, discipline and knowledge passed between men who understood that winter was as deadly as the enemy. Why winter became a silent battlefield killer in World War II. Most World War II armies entered winter unprepared because leadership underestimated both duration and severity. Germany expected a short campaign in the Soviet Union and issued summer uniforms well into freezing temperatures. Soviet troops often had numbers but lacked consistent supply. Allied forces in Italy and the Ardennes faced sudden cold snaps without winterized logistics. Soldiers learned quickly that exposure was not passive. Cold attacked constantly, draining energy, slowing reaction time, and turning small mistakes into fatal ones. Survival required daily deliberate action. How soldiers used layered clothing and scavenging to trap body heat. Without proper winter gear, soldiers layered whatever they could find. Civilian coats, scarves, blankets, newspaper, burlap sacks, and even straw were stuffed inside uniforms. German soldiers famously wrapped newspaper around their torsos and legs because paper trapped air surprisingly well. Soviet troops used padded Telegraika jackets when available, but when shortages hit, they layered shirts and repurposed fabric. The principle was simple and still applies today. Multiple loose layers trap heat better than one heavy layer. Modern survivalists use the same logic with base layers, insulation and shells, proving that the physics of warmth hasn't changed. How soldiers kept their feet alive when boots failed them. Feet were often the first casualties. Boots froze solid, socks stayed wet for days, and circulation collapsed. Soldiers rotated socks constantly when possible, dried them inside their jackets using body heat, and stuffed paper or rags into boots for insulation. Soviet soldiers learned to loosen boots slightly to avoid cutting off circulation, a mistake that cost countless toes. The practical takeaway here is timeless. Dry feet matter more than almost anything in cold environments. Even today, survival training emphasizes sock rotation, moisture control, and avoiding tight footwear in freezing conditions. How fire discipline and hidden heat sources kept men alive. Open fires were often forbidden near the front, so soldiers learned to create concealed heat. Small candle stubs burned inside helmets, ammo tins, or dugouts provided just enough warmth to prevent freezing. In some cases, soldiers buried themselves partially underground, using earth as insulation. Snow itself became a shield when packed correctly, blocking wind and preserving heat. These methods mirror modern cold-weather survival techniques, where controlled micro-heat sources and terrain use can mean the difference between survival and exposure. How movement and routine prevented cold from winning. Stillness killed. Soldiers were taught to move regularly even during guard duty to keep blood flowing. Simple actions like flexing fingers, rotating shoulders, or stamping feet were done constantly. Units established strict routines, checking each other's faces for frostbite, forcing exhausted men to move, and sharing warmth when necessary. The lesson here is discipline. Cold weather survival is not about comfort. It's about maintaining circulation and awareness even when exhaustion sets in. How food, fat and calories became weapons against winter. Cold burns calories fast. Soldiers who survived winter learned to eat whenever possible, prioritizing fats when available. Lard, bacon grease and butter were treasured because fat burns slower and provides sustained warmth. Hot liquids, even weak soup or melted snow with scraps, boosted morale and body temperature. Modern cold weather nutrition follows the same rule. High-calorie intake is essential. WWII soldiers didn't count macros, but they understood energy equals heat. How mental resilience and shared knowledge mattered as much as equipment. Perhaps the most overlooked survival tool was experience shared between soldiers. Veterans taught newcomers how to recognize frostbite early, how to sleep without freezing, and how to manage fear and fatigue. Humor, routines, and unit cohesion kept men alert and alive. Psychological collapse often preceded physical failure. This applies directly to survival scenarios today, where mindset, preparation, and group cooperation matter as much as gear. Why WWII? Winter survival lessons still matter today. Every technique used by WWII soldiers under-equipped and undersupplied aligns with modern survival principles. Layering, moisture control, calorie management, terrain use, movement and discipline remain the foundation of cold weather survival. The difference is that today we have better gear, yet the same mistakes still kill people who underestimate winter. These soldiers didn't have the luxury of choice. They adapted or died. Their knowledge remains brutally relevant. If this deep dive into real wartime survival taught you something new, subscribe to Hidden Histories WWII and share this video with someone who thinks history is just dates and battles. This channel exists to preserve the hard-earned lessons written in frostbite, exhaustion and endurance. Lessons the past paid for in blood so we don't have to.